Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is September the 6th, 2023, and if it is Wednesday night, it is Black Men Speak. Welcome, everyone. Jimmy Stewart, my co host and trusted partner, will not be joining us this evening due to unforeseen circumstances. So it will be me, but of course, as always, we have a jam-packed show and looking forward to everyone having a great time. And we'll be talking about some interesting stories that we have been tracking in the news. And also, we have a special guest tonight that I know that everyone will enjoy hearing. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking forward to a great show tonight. And let's get started. We started something new last week, and we're going to continue that this week. We started out with birthdays of folks that you may know. And so we're going to continue that until you tell us, you know what, I've had enough of that. So let's go ahead and get started with the birthday show before we get started with the news and our special guest. So for those who had September birthdays since our last show, there were a couple of people that we missed, but let's go ahead and get those on and we'll continue to move. Our first birthday baby is, you might know this guy, Jamal Williams, famous comedian and actor, one of my favorite comedians. Funny as all get out. I would definitely have to say that Jamal Williams is in the top 10 comedians of all time, and that's historical. This is a good one. For those of you who are in entertainment, of course, you know who this is. The Beyonce knows, the diva of the 20th century. Happy birthday to you. Both Damon and Beyonce had a birthday on September the 4th. For those of you who like movies, you might know this face, Idris Elba. He's been in a lot of great movies. He is definitely an A-lister and someone who folks go to see. He had a birthday on September the 6th, in addition to the great Macy Gray. For those of you who are music fans, you cannot mistake that voice. Now, this is another great actor. Lorenz Tate, who had a birthday on September the 8th, has been around for a while. And, one of those guys whose faces you definitely cannot miss. For those of you who are old school music fans, we have the Big Daddy Kane, who was born on September the 10th. And for those of you who are rap fans, Ludacris, September the 11th. Going back to movies, of course, we have Taraji P. Henson, who was also born on September the 11th. And those of you who are movie fans as well, we have Jonathan Majors, who has run into some interesting stories and interesting news lately, but you cannot deny his acting ability. And finally, but definitely not least, the diva, Jennifer Hudson. This girl can straight up sing. So those are birthdays from this past week going into this upcoming week. And by the way, Jennifer Hudson's birthday was on the 12th, or will be on the 12th of September. So those are all of our birthdays for this week. Happy birthday, belated happy birthday wish to those who had a birthday within the last week as well. So now we will go into our key stories since this past week. For some of you guys who watch us pretty regularly, we talked about the coup in Niger, which is in West Africa this past week. Well, as we had told you before, the then president, Mohamed Bazoum, was sacked and arrested by the military. And now he has been replaced by a new military-elected prime minister, Ali Mohamed Lamine Zain, who is now the head of state until there is a democratically elected leader in the nation of Niger. Now, there has been some controversy here because, of course, after the coup, many of the West African states came to the rescue and have already imposed sanctions against Niger and have threatened military action to restore civilian rule. And the key issue right now is, what is the timeline on getting back to civilian rule? Nigerian president, which is just next to Niger, has also threatened sanctions against Niger as well. And in addition to that, you have some of the European and or Western states that are seeking to restore the democratically elected president. But this is the key, folks. And let's have a political conversation about this, because ultimately the military has the support of the people. And that's something that most people may not really consider. Both the French and the U.S. have strategic interests in Niger, quite frankly, because they have military bases in Niger. In addition to that, the French have strategic mineral resources that they want to keep access to. Niger is one of the largest producers of uranium in the world that, by the way, helps to produce nuclear power. I believe 33% of the power in France is based upon the uranium that's being created in Niger. So with that being said, we're going to continue to keep our eyes open to what's going on in Niger, because quite frankly, as goes in Africa, also goes in Africa, American, in the United States. And so with that being said, it is in our best interest to make sure that we understand not what's going on in our backyard in the United States, but in Africa, in the Caribbean, and in other countries where we have a strategic interest as well. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to a little bit more interesting news in the area of entertainment. For those of you who are movie goers, you may have already seen this movie, Equalizer 3, with the Denzel Washington, one of my favorite actors for sure. Well, Equalizer 3 opened this past weekend at the box office, and you know, it is now, with Labor Day being over, one of the highest rated films to open on Labor Day. I believe only second all time in terms of gross revenue, earning 34 million in the US and 60 million globally, and has gotten fantastic ratings from most audiences. I believe 94% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and has also gotten high marks from audiences around the country. So for those of you who are moviegoers, you might want to check this out. Of course, the first 2 weekends are extremely important for any film that help determine distribution throughout the country. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and take some time to check this movie out. I haven't seen it myself, but I have seen the first 2 Equalizers. Both of them were excellent. And I've heard that this is probably among the best of the 3 that have already come out. So we're definitely looking forward to seeing that. And make sure that you support Denzel. Now, this comes at a kind of interesting time, because for some of you who may not know, the actors are actually on strike. I think 7 weeks into a strike right now. And so as a result, Denzel was not able to stump on behalf of this new movie as they typically would, as they're fighting for what they consider to be fair wages. And when you have things like AI that are coming out and, quite frankly, probably potentially having an impact on the earnings and other logistics for actors, this is going to be a very sensitive subject. So with all that being said, let's go out, continue to support Denzel and Equalizer, also I believe produced and directed by Antoine Fuqua as well. So going to sports, for those of you who are football fans, and football fans, college football in particular, some of you may have seen this game this past weekend that turned out to be a barn burner. TCU versus Colorado. And of course, most of you guys who follow sports know the backstory. Deion Sanders was just hired to be the head coach of Colorado. after leaving Jackson State after 3 years. And, you know, there's a lot of rancor going back and forth in terms of him leaving Jackson State. Jimmy and I, we talked about it on one of our prior shows, whether he should or shouldn't have. And then what's next at Colorado? And there's been a lot of hype around him going to Colorado and what's going to happen. In the last 9 months, Deion has literally flipped the team, has 87 new players that weren't there last year. And I think they were a 21-point underdog going into this past weekend playing TCU. Well, in the words of Muhammad Ali, they shook up the world. They actually beat TCU, which, by the way, won the Big 12 championship last year. By the way, was the runner-up in the national championship last year, losing to Georgia. Coming in with high expectations. Not to say that they didn't take Colorado seriously, but suffice it to say that there are a lot of people who were very surprised at this win, given the number of new players on the team, given a new coach, given the fact that they only won one game last year. People were totally outdone when Colorado, led by Deion Sanders, led by his son and quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, and I believe the number 2 recruit in the nation in 2022, Travis Hunter, had an outstanding game and ended up beating the TCU Horned Frogs. So all that being said, it's a lot of interesting news going on in the press right now because, quite frankly, a lot of folks don't care for Deion in the press. A lot of folks don't care for his style. They don't care for the way that he does things. But I will say this much, interestingly enough, you may not care about his style, but for them to make an impact statement like this in the very first game of the year, and against the TCU like that, this is big news. And that's not to say that Colorado is prepared to win the Big 12 this year, but they've made a statement. They've put people on notice. And quite frankly, I don't think they're going to be surprising anybody else this year. With that being said, of course, we wish Deion the best of luck. We definitely hope the best for his players. And quite frankly, there's some other politics around this as well, because let's be very honest. There aren't that many African-American coaches in D1 football. Deion is one out of 14 black head coaches out of 233 in D1 football. It's very political, but Deion has a lot of cachet around him and has a lot of support. And so this potentially opens the doors for more African-American head coaches in the NCAA in football in particular. This potentially opens the door for more head coaches at HBCU to get roles within D1 schools. And quite frankly, there's only one Deion, but if he can leverage his fame and his results, more importantly, to open more doors, hey, it's about time, and best of luck to him. So we will go ahead and continue to move on that. And of course, we wish Deion and the Colorado Buffaloes the best of luck this year. Finally, following up on a story that we also talked about earlier this year, the federal courts have struck down an Alabama congressional map that, in essence, the Supreme Court said you're going to have to create another district, another congressional district, given the demographics and the population of the state. The clip notes of the story is that Alabama is 27% black. And out of the 7 representatives that come out of that state, only one of them represent that black district or that area of the state due to gerrymandering by the Republican-controlled Congress. And so the Supreme Court stated that you have to draw another congressional map, create 2 seats that are going to represent this significant population. And if we do the math, folks, for those who paid attention in civic, we have 2, of course, chambers of Congress. We have the Senate and we have the House. The Senate, of course, you get 2 seats for each state. It doesn't matter how large or small. But, of course, when you look at the House, it's based upon population. This is simple math. You have 7 seats And if 27% of the state looks African American, then that looks like 7 times 25%. That's 2. Simple math. But they're not going out so far. But at the end of the day, you also have to look at the political implications of this. It's Alabama and the amount of seats that you have in Congress, but it's not just Alabama. It's Louisiana. It's Georgia. It's not just Alabama at stake. And at the end of the day, the Republican Party, who does have control of the House right now, wants to keep that control. So as far as they can put it off, they're going to do that. And at the end of the day, that's politics. And voting does have consequences. So make sure that you continue to stay focused on this. And we will, of course, make sure that we keep you informed so you can have intelligent conversations at work and at home. Ladies and gentlemen, those are our news stories for today. And of course, we have another great guest this evening, a friend and colleague of mine that I've known for a very long time. And, you know, we ran into each other and had a conversation last week talking about the state of education. And we got into this intriguing conversation about dual credit programs and the impact that can have on families, on young people, on their future. And I said, you know, you've got to be on our show so that we can talk about, you know, dual credit programs. Some of you, of course, may be familiar with it, but I'd like to now introduce my good friend, Jamal Williams. How you doing, my good friend and brother?
I'm good, Tommy. How you doing, man?
Everything's going great. We appreciate you joining us tonight, and we appreciate you taking the time to kind of share your thoughts with us on this great program. And I know some people personally who have young people who have benefited from this program and who we are looking forward to getting more information. But before we do that, let's take a few minutes to acknowledge some of our guests who are on the chat line. We have Ms. Marion Square. We want, of course, welcome her. She is one of our strong supporters, so we want to thank you for joining us tonight, Marion. And Ms. Tanya Hall, of course, of the who has her own radio station as well, KGGR Radio, 1040 AM and 106.9 FM. Listen on radio and on the internet, 7:30 and 9 AM or 2 and 4 PM daily for the news going on in your neighborhood and around the world. And Diggs BTW7. I'm not exactly sure who that is, but I'm sure that they have a name that I could probably pronounce. But this Diggs BTW7, thank you for joining us. Let us know who you are. And of course, we will acknowledge you on the show. And we'll look forward to, of course, a couple of other folks joining. So let's get moving. Brother Williams, tell us about yourself, what you do, and then we're going to go ahead and move forward into the conversation.
Yes, Brother Duncan, thank you so much for being able to providing this platform to talk a little bit more about something that's a passion for me, something I got into, been involved with probably over the last 10 years. But just a little background: I am a son of 2 educators. My parents are my mom's an administrator, my dad an art teacher, and so they've inspired education in us and my siblings throughout our entire life. I learned very quickly that I was not built to be in the classroom in K through 12. So I really gravitated to higher education. So I've been in higher education for the last 15 years, on and off in student affairs work and academic affairs. And currently right now I serve as the Associate Dean of Student Success, focused on dual credit. I've been working in dual credit programming probably for, like I said, for the last about 10 years now. Really at the kind of just seen it really grow and take off, especially in Texas. So it's been the growth has been really, really impressive. It's a complete game changer, especially for all students, especially our students of color and our students of a like low social economic background. We're thinking about trying to pay for college, trying to figure out how to do that and all those things. But the dual credit program has been an amazing thing. And Texas has really, and I'll talk a little bit about this a little bit later on, but Texas has really taken it to the next level on some of the dual credit programming and support here. And we can kind of go from there.
So tell us a little bit more about the dual credit program? Simply put, what it is, how it works, and why is it important?
So the bottom line is simple, just a simple way. Dual credit, you're taking, while in high school, you're taking college credit, taking college courses. So those high school, so typical courses that you end up taking, like your English course, you'll end up taking that on a college level, and you'll end up getting credit for both. So you get your high school credit and your college credit at the same time. In Texas, it's like as I mentioned, in Texas, it's really taking on a whole life of its own. Where we're seeing students who are doing dual credit, and they're doing other specialized programs, what are called our early collegiate high school college, where students are starting all the way off in the 9th grade and going all the way taking dual credit classes throughout that entire process. Also, we're doing what are called P-Tech programs. Those are pathways to technology in early collegiate high schools. And what those allow are very specialized programs where you can get dual credit programming in engineering, the medical field, technology, gaming, all these different high need areas that they're having out there, and allowing students to get certifications and credentials and different things like that to be able to enter the workforce a lot sooner while they exit from high school, and also considering doing enter the workforce after they get out of high school and kind of go from there. Now, some of the background, you may have seen this, is looking at some of our career in technology, or CTE classes. You've probably seen it, like your welding, your auto mechanic, and things like that. Well, that has taken a completely different level, and they've grown those programs, and they've made them now very key, a key component to a lot of our high school programming. So one of the keys you may see now, our students now are going through what we call a CTE auto mechanic program and things like that. Well, typically now you would see a student, maybe back in the day, would go and they may open a shop or do different things like that, or work in Meineke. Well, now they're partnering with programs like Honda. You're seeing it with Volkswagen and other companies like that, and they're hiring them directly out of high school with the certifications that they need, and they're going directly into that workforce and making very competitive wages.
So if I'm understanding you correct, these are not just technical things where you're developing code and things of that nature, but you're also talking about trades here.
Oh yeah, so you're seeing trades, technical. You're seeing the general aspect where students are just want to take college credits to get almost their first 2 years of college out of the way. We've really seen all different ramifications in the dual credit program. I currently, as I work at a community college, we're seeing our students now putting them on a pathway where they're able to get their associate's degree and their high school diploma while they're still in high school. It's a complete game changer. So if you think about it, and I'll talk a little bit about this and some of the things that Texas is doing about offsetting the cost. But if you're thinking about this, you're getting 2 years of college done at the same time you're getting your degree. And
Right.
a lot of times these courses are 100% free to our students. And we're transferring at least a minimum. I know they have up to 60 hours, but a lot of times when they go off to their 4-year institutions after they complete their dual credit program, they're transferring almost 40 hours over to a 4-year institution. And if you think about that, that's 2.5 years of college completely paid for.
And when you consider,
graduating quicker.
I mean, that you bring up a very good point, because the cost of college is not going down, it's going up at an exponential rate. I know at one point in time, they were saying that the cost of college was going up at least 6 to 7% per year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the things you're seeing now, and I'll just give you a little higher education tip. The state of Texas has allowed our public institutions, they've asked them to freeze their tuition rates. So a lot of the tuition rates are frozen, right?
Now, when did this start?
So you'll see that. You'll see a lot of it. They don't advertise it as much, but there have been talks in Texas to keep that tuition rate frozen. Where it's at. It's already high enough. It is.
Yes.
As you know, as a proud A&M alum, A&M is not what A&M cost when you went there.
Not even close.
So But one of the things that they do now is a lot of institutions, you may not pay it tuition, but you'll pay it in fees and different things like that. But with dual credit, it allows them to come in, get those hours, transfer them in, and then they're able to move into their major. They're able to save money on their college. So when we talk about like the economic aspect of this, it's really game changing. One of the things that Texas has done in the recently is they have created a program of calling building a talent strong Texas. And one of the goals in building talent strong Texas is to increase the degree workforce by in over the next 30 years. They want to increase the degree workforce by 60%. And a part of that is doing through dual credit programming, through some of the CTE and certificate programs that they're providing. But one of the big things that they're having a part of this building talent strong workforce is to decrease the amount of debt students are leaving with college.
Big deal.
So it's a complete game changer. So if you can leave college now with less than 5,000 or less of debt, I mean you're completely you're killing it. And some of them are leaving out with complete almost zero because they're looking at options of paying as they go, or doing payment plans, getting grants and different things like that. So they're really taking advantage of the benefits of this. I mean, look, I wouldn't have the amount of student loans I may have now if I was in dual credit programming. So if you think about it, even from a cultural aspect, especially for African American communities, one of the things we talk about, is education is a gateway and a key for us to move forward. But that education comes with a price tag.
Yes.
But if we're able to take advantage of these courses a lot sooner and excel in them, we are changing not only just like the not the educational achievement for our family, but the economic. So it's a generational change in what we do. My wife serves as a dual credit counselor, serving with mostly students of Black and Brown students and international students. These kids are getting amazing scholarships to TCU, UT, UTA. All these big schools are grabbing these kids up. Why? Because they know they've already shown that they've completed college courses while in high school, but also they know if they already have at least 40 something hours they've transferred in, their likelihood for them to graduate is going to be high. So they're going to put a little bit more resources and support those students to help them move forward.
Let me ask you this, and I remember reading an article some years ago. It said that the average student leaves school with about $30,000 in debt. It may have come down since then, but I remember reading an article a long time ago. I was very fortunate because I had scholarships, when I went to school, academic scholarships. But that $30,000 makes a huge impact, and especially if you're talking about low income, mid-low income households, and it is a huge political issue now, of course, when we look at, what Biden's trying to do with the debt relief program. So if we look at the average student coming out of school, still about the same numbers. And if we look at programs like this, are they available in most schools, public schools, private schools? I know there's a growing number of kids who are being educated at home, homeschool.
So actually a great question. So majority of all public schools have pretty much some type of early collegiate high school program, or dual credit program. Now I'll tell you this, for our early collegiate high school program and the PTEC program, they usually have to be at a certain level. School has to be at a certain level of disadvantage, social economic level, for them to be able to get those state designations to be able to be an early collegiate high school. But dual credit is pretty much available at all schools. And most of the dual credit partnerships are at with community college partners. So as they're doing those partnerships with community colleges, they're able to get those classes and credits and things like that. So it's been really beneficial for them. The other piece that we've been seeing just at our private schools, they're able to do dual credit with their partnership with community colleges or four-year institutions and things like that. Now, the thing that you would see a lot more when we talk about the we talk about the what was I going to say? I lost terms. When we're talking about the when we're talking about the homeschool population, one of the things when I came over to do Dallas College and I saw with the homeschool population was a complete game changer. We have a huge amount of homeschool students that are taking advantage of this. One of the things we've seen post-COVID is really a lot of students have now taken advantage of that because now they're doing the schools at home and they've been doing the schooling at home, and now they've been entering in and being able to take the dual credit courses. So it's really been kind of a complete shift and game changer for the programming for them to be able to take care of those classes. And a lot of them either do it remote, so they're not even coming to campus, and so it's working out really well for them. I do want to give a little stipulation about this.
Sure.
One of the things that we see a lot of times, people think that, oh, I can just go off and take dual credit anytime, right? Well, you do have to take what is called the Texas Success Initiative, and that is pretty much the college equivalency to show that you can take college courses. So now that you're able to do that and take college courses, you have to pass those tests. And there's two sections to that test. There's a reading and writing session, and there's a math session. So if you're able to pass that equivalency, then you're eligible to take courses. The crazy thing about that, you can sit and take that test as early as 13.
And you're what, 7th or 8th grade at 13?
Eighth grade.
Okay.
Eighth grade. So if you take that test and you pass those, even if you just pass the reading and writing, and you don't pass the math, well, the reading and writing, you can take all classes except for math. So that's the majority of a lot of college courses you could take, and instead of without the math. So it's really been a game changer. One of the families I talk about is the Slits family. They're in Keller, Texas. Haley Taylor Slits. She graduated from SMU Law School.
Yes, we talked about her.
Yes, I think she was. I want to say she was 19.
Yes.
Her brother is 17. He has just started his PhD program at UTA, and then they have a younger sister who's at Texas Women's right now, who is I think she's a 14 or 15. But they have actually used the homeschool model in dual credit programming to their advantage. And for both of those, for Ian and Taylor, in the public school, one of the things they did tell them is that, hey, we would place your child in special education, and their parents advocated for them. And I will tell you this, the biggest thing that we have, especially for families of color, is the parents have to get engaged and involved in some of these dual credit programming. So when the papers come home or talking to the families, they are the ones that have to go and advocate for their son and daughters to make sure they're in these correct courses.
So that brings up a very good question. How do parents typically find out about these types of programs coming that they exist, that they're available in their school, the testing requirements? How do they typically find out about it?
They got to go to parents' night. One thing we talk about, my wife, as she's a counselor, and she goes out and she does these big dual credit parent nights, and she may get 10 families, right? In
a school of how many?
1,800.
10 parents in a school of 1,800. Okay.
Yeah. So you see those things, like, I mean, in her dual credit program, she probably has maybe over 500 students or something. But these kids, the parents just don't come out to them, and they have to come out and be engaged in. They have to be engaged into the family, in the son and daughter's education process. One of the things I used to talk about when I would go out to the schools is that while you're in high school and your son or daughter's doing dual credit, the entire family is engaged in this process, right? Like, you need to be checking in and seeing like their college classes or what they're doing, and making sure they're doing their assignments and different things like that. You have to be engaged into these processes and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, what they're supposed to do. So those are one of the things that they have. So that's one of the things that they have to be engaged in.
You know, it is amazing that you say that, and very unfortunate to hear that you have a school that large. You only have that many families that come out. But let's do this before we move forward. We're about halfway through the show right now, so we want to acknowledge a couple of other folks. We have Brother Asar Al-Kabulon, who, of course, is out there supporting us as well of the African Genius podcast. We want to thank him for joining us as well. And for those of you who are out there, two things. I'm going to have to make sure that I say my Jimmyism since he's not here. If you've not done so thus far, like, subscribe, and of course, share this information because this is extremely important. I know that a lot of our viewers, probably the kids are out of school by now, but you may have a young person in your family, or you might, even have grandchildren that, may be of age who may be eligible for these programs. And what I want to talk about are the hurdles to getting engaged with these programs. And what are the things that we need to do if we're talking about taking a test to be eligible? Well, how do you even get prepared for that? So with that being said, folks, make sure that you're sharing this information. And most importantly, as Jamal is saying, Mr. Williams is saying, make sure that you are connected with what's going on at school. So any of those out there who are on the, of course, chat line, give us your questions. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know, have you ever heard of dual credit programs? Do you know of anybody in your family who is in dual credit programs or who may be matriculated and went to school and cut 1 or 2 years off because they were able to get those credits out early? So let's go ahead and move forward with that. So let's talk about preparation. When should parents and families start preparing for this? Because you have to take an exam to even be eligible to take dual credit courses, right? How do you plan for this?
So typically I would tell a family to probably start engaging, to start researching early, maybe 7th grade, but the active engagement of this, the active engagement for any family is 8th grade. And why I say that, because now at most schools, at most high schools, at this time, they're really kind of selecting or understanding where high school they're going to go to. So like you researched like a college, you need to be researching the high school. So you need to understand what dual credit programming offerings do they have? Do they have an ECH program? Do they have a PTech program? As you start engaging in this and start understanding what's and researching what's going on in the high school, it'll allow you to ask questions. I think a lot of times, we're just so hey, you're in 8th grade, you're just going to go to the high school and you're just going to take your freshman level classes. Well, that's not so anymore. These kids now have so many advanced programs, so many degree programs of study that they can be involved, engaged with now, that now it tells them okay, it's tough though. I'll tell you this. I'll always say this. It's hard for a 14-year-old to make a decision about what their pathway is going to be for the next, for the next 4 years, where they just try to make it, from first period throughout the hallway in this mass of students. But it does allow them to be able to be engaged in the process. But the parents need to start doing the research for it. So even with my daughter, she's in 8th grade now, me and my wife are in constant conversations. I think this will be a good clue for her. They do have dual credit. She actually goes to a STEM-based school now, and we want her to continue at another STEM-based school so she can continue to get that focus on, math and science. And, my thing, even if she doesn't go into engineering, math and science helps you in your thought process as you kind of move forward. One of the things in the engineering mind. So I want her to have that understanding. So we're already having those conversations and kind of process to help her understand what's next for her. So honestly, in our household, dual credit is not an option. It's going to happen. So
this is not just an academic conversation. This is an economic conversation.
Preach. So that's one of the big things. So the other thing too, I will talk about this when we talk about talking about the requirements and things like that. Well, nowadays the bar is so high to get such a full academic ride. You would hear that a lot more when you would, earlier, students would be able to get full rides to school and different things like that. Well, the bar is actually lower. It used to be the top 10% get automatic admissions to these schools. Well, A&M and UT shrink that down to I want to say they shrink it down to maybe, 5 to 3%. So they've really kind of decreased some of those numbers down. So it's one of those things that we're really having to see now. If you do dual credit, that's one of the things now you can be able to earn that full ride for your son or daughter, right? So if they're able to get at least those 2.5 years off, taken care of, for most families, they can consider, like, I can plan 2.5 years over 4 years, or people can think about, or even in the process of thinking about, if they've been planning for this, hey, instead of dipping into all those funds into that 529 or whichever, college saving plan, if you're doing that for your son or daughter, hey, I can only allocate, this year I only can allocate, I can go ahead and just use 2 of that because she did dual credit programming. The biggest secret I tell about everybody, and they have to understand, is every dual credit class, you should think about it like this. Every dual credit class you pass, and when you pass, you just have to make a C or better in that course, is a scholarship for college. So you just start subtracting those dollars away from that 4-year college tuition by each dual credit class. So you can essence and tell you, hey, I earned a $30,000 scholarship before I even left high school by doing my dual credit work. And then apply that to the scholarships you may get at the 4-year institution, the different things like that. You may have a full ride right there just by doing the work on it and ahead of time. So there's a lot of different programs at the institution I was at previously, was at Dallas College. We had a pipeline where students, if they did dual credit and they had 21 hours above in a 3.0, they were automatically admitted to Texas, into this institution. So think about that. So we didn't look at your SAT, we didn't look at your ACT, we didn't look at your ranking, or any of those stuff. All we saw, if you had 21 dual credit hours in a minimum of a minimum of a 2.5, you are automatically admitted.
Okay, I need you to repeat that for the parents out there.
So we want to repeat to every dual credit class.
Well, no, not just that, but a school like yourself, who, some students just aren't very good standardized test takers.
Oh yeah.
Even though I'll speak on Jimmy's behalf, that's a cop out. But if they're saying that, and I've heard this from more than one place, and especially post-COVID, that they're not looking as hard at the standardized test, the ACT and the SAT as much, and they're looking at other factors. So can you repeat that part again for institutions that may relax the formerly rigid standards of the standardized test and maybe looking at other areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So now some of the institutions, and like when I previously worked at, instead of looking at the requirements of like your ACT, your SAT, your class ranking, your high school GPA, if you're taking dual credit classes and they see that you actually, hey, you've completed this amount of hours and you have at least a 2.5 grade point average, they're saying that's all we need to admit you to the school because you've shown that you can do the college work. And I think you're 100% right. One of the things we have to look at too is that these standardized testing sometimes can provide some biases in it. And we see studies have shown that. If Jimmy was here, I'd be like, you may call it a cop-out, but facts are facts and the data is there. So we have to continue to look at those things. But if you're showing, it's just like on your job. If you're showing that you can do the skills or do your assigned role, then I'm going to be able to trust you with some other assignments. And that's what some of these colleges and universities are doing. So that's been a really benefit. I want to shift just quite a bit when I look at this too, because we talk about just our credit part that the students are taking, but there's a lot of technical certificates students are getting. One of the big things that we're seeing is in the medical field, we're seeing people getting certificates in respiratory, sonography, sonography has to do with radiology. You're seeing people getting optometry checks, all these technical programs. Now, these technical degrees per se, you get these technical classes may not transfer over to your traditional 4-year institution. But what they do allow you to do is they allow you to get into your current workforce. And a lot of these places where they're going into the workforce have tuition reimbursement. So now they'll allow you to go back and you can start working on your degree while you have a good competitive job. So just rewind, and I'll just say, hey, if we went back to 18-year-old Duncan, to Duncan, and we said, hey, you got this certificate in, let's just say you got the certificate in at the early form of cybersecurity. We're going to pay you $30,000, $35,000 to come work for this company, and you can go back and get your degree
all day long.
Right. All day long, right?
Yes.
And it's one of those things that we really have to start talking to our students about. I have one of the programs we worked with was connected with Amazon. So they're doing an Amazon logistics program, and they're showing them how to track packages and do all that stuff to make sure. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, there's a package at the door at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how they do it, but it's there. Well, we're training students how to do that at Dallas College. That's an entry-level job with a certificate, not even a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, certificate, $50,000. We had a student that moved. He went through one of our, I think it was an entry-level air traffic control program, $65,000. He now makes more than his parents in his household.
Wow.
These are the type of training and programs that we're providing for our students at the high school level that we need students to really take advantage of and the families to really understand. So I think one of the things you'll see a lot more now, we talk about academic advising, helping them students while they're in college about what they need to do, what classes they need to take. You're going to see some career advising. So you're going to have a lot more young professionals in the workforce that are going to need this assistance on how to navigate. I've never got paid on the 1st or 15th where I get, $1,600 or $2,000, each paycheck. I don't even know how to manage it, other than paying for shoes and food, right? So you're going to have more coaching about different things like that. You're going to have to talk to them what it means to have full benefits, pensions, and things like that.
Yes.
Those are the things that we're really going to help individuals out. And I've talked to guys who work at Bell Flight. They work on the line. A lot of them have been there for like 20 years and they're about to retire. So they've come back to the high school to put them in these training, these certificate programs. Well, these guys have been working there 20 years. Most of them just have a high school diploma. They're making 6 figures, full benefits, full pension, full 401ks, right? So they're set. So they're trying to help the next generation come through to help them understand it. Now, of course, for most companies, the pension part went away, but the 401k and things like that are there, and they need to be able to understand that. That's setting them up for generational wealth. At 18, you work 20 years, you at that company, you're 38.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, on our show before. We've had financial advisors and things of that nature. Considering that you can start 18, 20 years old, making $50,000 a year, which is, I think, right around average in the United States of America household, and you start investing for retirement at that time, it does not require very much for you literally to be able to be set for life if you are consistent and disciplined.
And to be honest, brother, and this, I learned this later in my life, but the 401k money they take out of your check,
yes,
you don't even feel it. But when you look up 5-6 years down the road, you got $12,000 sitting right there, and you didn't even know how you did it.
Exactly. Exactly. We do have a question in the chat line, and Ms. Faith Fleming, one of our consistent and regular supporters, she said, is there a connection between taking this program, the dual credit program, and getting scholarships for school?
So there's not necessarily a connection, but it does help. I would say it does help a lot of the families in the schools. As students come in, a lot of times, if the student goes off to a 4-year institution and they have these dual credit classes on their transcript when they go, institutions will pair that up. There are about 10, I think it's about 10 schools through the Greater Texas Foundation. They're actually providing additional scholarships to dual credit students to go to school. I think A&M is one of the schools in that in their study that they're doing right now. So there are some different funds that are available for them if they go forward. You know, I won't have time tonight to kind of break it down, but we do want to make sure. And one of the things I talk to my team about when we're working with the students to make sure that we're making sure the students are being helping them be successful in the classroom, in the classes, right? Because one thing the other side of dual credit people don't talk about, if a student doesn't do well in courses early, in a high school may keep them in those classes, then they can jeopardize their college career and some of their financial aid. So there are two sides. There are two sides to this, and I know we talk about the good sides a lot of times, but nobody ever really talks about some of the missteps we can happen. So just like when you're in college, you don't pass your courses, and then they're like, "Hey, you're not making good academic progression. We can take away your financial aid." Well, the same way, if and typically high school stop students, so we don't see this a lot. But I have seen occasions where I've seen students that have made 4 and 5 Fs in dual credit courses, and that may limit them on their financial aid that they may get when they get to college. So we have to be really mindful about that. And that's why I'm really proud of just working at Dallas College, because we have an entire advising team that works directly with dual credit students that talks to them about these different things, that takes that time to sit down and provide those details and academic guidance for them as they move forward.
What role do counselors play in this at high school?
Yeah, so counselors play a big role. Like I had mentioned my wife earlier, and a lot of counselors are moving to this model where they're designating either a dual credit counselor, as my wife serves as the early collegiate high school counselor for a school, and they're providing this person where all they do is they focus on their dual credit students, because it's that comprehensive to make sure which classes they're in, making sure they're doing everything they need to do to move forward, and also to catch some of the students that may be declining. So yes, the counselor plays a key role. Again, they're the ones they're working directly of doing the parent nights, sending out information, communicating with the students and the families and the colleges. So they play a very key role. One thing you'll see, a lot of schools have what are called post-secondary post-secondary departments, or college and career readiness departments. That's usually in their district counseling area, and that's where you can find a lot of your dual credit informations and programs of studies that are available. So yes, it's a partnership. Now you can't put it all on the counselor. It's got to be a partnership between the counselor, the students, and the family that come together and make this be a winning team for the students.
So for parents who have no idea as to whether their school offers dual credit programs, what do they do?
So one thing I would highly recommend is go to your district website, go to the search bar, put dual credit, and see what kind of comes up. I mean, sometimes it's just that simple. Or go to the counseling department on the district website and get that information. Or or even go up to the school and say, hey, what type of dual credit programming do y'all have here? Because I'd love to get my son or daughter involved and get those steps, because that information doesn't come out. I do want to share something that just happened. I noticed you talking about current events,
yes.
But something that the state of Texas just passed is on House Bill 8. And House Bill 8, like most of these legislations, they really focuses on a new funding model for community colleges and public institutions. But in House Bill 8, they put in, they're dedicating $78 million to what they're calling financial aid funds to support dual credit. And what they're doing is they're covering up to 15 hours of dual credit for all students in the state of Texas, completely free.
Repeat that again.
So House Bill 8,
House Bill 8.
Yes, is covering up to almost 15 hours or more, and depending on the schools, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, you can get it at least 15 hours completely free for dual credit programming. So no cost to the families or anything like that. A lot of schools, the dual credit programming is already free, but for those that are not, this House bill is in play to cover that. And what's happening here is the state is now rewarding the community colleges for getting students in. So, hey, say John Smith is coming in, he's taking dual credit. Well, he's taking 2 classes. Typically, what would happen is those if he didn't meet the socioeconomic criteria and he had to pay out of pocket, they would cover those courses for him, and then the state would cover that tuition, TCC, and then or whatever community college, then they would get that money back from the state when they do the reporting. So it's now become a really big business because Texas, and let's talk big picture and talk, it always comes back to money, right?
Yes.
So when businesses look to relocate to states, what's the number one thing they look for?
Education, good school districts.
School districts. And they look at good school districts, and they look at how many people in the area have a degree. Well, this is what they're doing. Texas is saying, bring your company here. Let's show you how we're making a degree workforce. And like I had mentioned before, one of the things that we're seeing, I didn't mention it before, but one of the things we're looking at a decline in is in the trade industry, in our technical fields. So the more certificates and associates that you can provide, this is going to attract people to come into your area to do these companies. And they're like, oh, I can go ahead and get with this community college. I can do a partnership, and we can now have a degree workforce. So this is big business, President Duncan. It's big business across Texas, across the landscape. I would say just across the state, Texas, Tennessee, North Carolina are probably, in New York are some of the top states that are doing dual credit and technical P-Tech programming. So you'll be surprised. One of the other things we've done at Dallas Community College and some of our rural schools, community colleges are now offering 4-year degrees. So we actually offer a 4-year degree in early childhood education. The state is allowing these community colleges to provide these 4-year degrees in high need areas. So you're about to see some in nursing, early childhood education, and some of the technical fields. Well, here's the game changer. They're not paying 4-year tuition rate. They're paying community college tuition rate.
That's massive.
So we just graduated last spring 150 early childhood educators who pretty much came out, if not debt free, but their total degree only cost them about $20,000.
Wow.
But think about if you paired that now with dual credit, and then you continued over to the community college to finish out that early childhood degree, you're thinking about a degree that may cost less than maybe $10,000, maybe $8,000 now.
That is crazy.
And now when you enter the workforce with that degree, your starting salary now as a teacher, especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is about $58,000 to $60,000. So 4 times your salary is now 4 times what you probably paid for.
Yeah, no, that's a game changer. You can do the ROI, you can do the math on that all day long. But why don't we do this? It is like literally 1 minute before the close of the show. So what I'll do is give you 1 minute to make any closing statements and or recommendations. And this time moves real fast. So any closing statements or recommendations, and then we'll go ahead and close out tonight's show. And I really appreciate you joining us, and we're definitely got to have you to come back.
Yeah. So again, I want to say thank you for this platform. I think this is just something extremely important that we need to start talking to our families, especially our families of color, because it is a complete game changer for us. I'll just really just tell our parents that we have to do the research for these programs. We have to get more engaged in our children's education to help them. One of the things we've seen, if we can provide a roadmap for a lot of these students early, it can help them out, right? And then also it can help the student out on the the economic side where they don't have a lot of loans, and it can help the family out too, where we're not having to figure out how to pay for college. Dual credit has really came a long way. But one of the things I will tell people now, it's not, there's no longer, I remember there was a time where you had to pick a route where I gotta go get a job, or I gotta go to college.
Or
Well,
to the
nowadays,
military.
yeah, or the military. Yeah, that's my dad gave me 3 options, but it wasn't staying on it wasn't sleeping in his house. That wasn't one of the options. But now, understanding the military, you don't have to do that anymore. To go in the military or pick or choose a career or college, you can now do both, right? You can go and get a very marketable and high-paying pathway in high school and a certificate once you graduate, and go to college and probably get your college paid for from your company. So there are so many different ways that you can do and continue to go for. You can continue to do for this, but I tell the parents, you have to advocate for your son and daughter. But there's so much more out there. Brother Duncan, if people do want to get involved and engage with me, I'll when you put this, you can have my contact information in the comments or something like that, so they can reach out, and if they need any assistance or any help, I'm always available for them to help them out.
Matter of fact, with that being said, I think that's a very good point. So what is the best contact information for you?
Yeah, so they can reach me at Jamal.Williams, the number 1 at Outlook. So just my first name dot last name, and then just the number 1 at outlook.com.
Jamal.Williams, the number 1 at outlook.com.
Correct.
Okay, let me see if we can get this going here and make sure that we get this right, and we will be ready to go. So for all of our guests out there, did I get this right?
Nailed it.
There we go. So for those out there who want to get more information, whether you're planning to go to Dallas College, or as a student, or as a young person in your life, so on and so forth, or just want to get more general information about this, you may reach out to Jamal Williams at jamal.williams1@outlook.com. And at the end of the day, we talk about this all the time on this show, the importance of building an economy. And in order to build an economy, you have to have a skill set. Everybody may not go to college and get a degree, but between that, having a trade, and quite frankly, there are folks with trade skills who are making very strong 6-figure salaries, and or going to the military. You need to be doing something, and what you don't need to be doing is going back home to mom and daddy and living with them. Unless you are going there for a couple of years to save up for your own home and getting the down payment, and then after that, you leave. I can't get with that, but everything else, you need to get a skill, you need to get a degree, you need to get something that you can go out and build your own economy so that we can build this nation. All right. Well, if that's all that we've got, brother, we appreciate you. And of course, we're going to have you out on the near future. And ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you joining us tonight. And again, make sure that you join us next Wednesday night for another fantastic show, because of course, if it is Wednesday night, it is Black Men Speak. Thank you for joining us, and have a good evening and a good weekend.